from 20th Century Fox, and he said, "Oh, among other things."
Well, my bad. I'm sorry. I did everything but start the broadcast. Forgive me. So, getting a little punchy. Let me just tell you guys. All right. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. I created the event, sent out the invites, started the video, and didn't start the broadcast. So apparently, I'm getting a little punchy, but that's okay. We get it done. We're back. And we'll just go on from here. This is part two. What happened was the YouTube broadcast goes for 8 hours, and then you have to end it. So that's what I was trying to do, and I did it. I ended it, and I just didn't start the new one. So here we are. I see you guys coming back in. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion. Hi, Rosie. Badger's coming in. I got to send, let me send Kelly, because Kelly is ready to, let me just send her an invite. All right. So Kelly will be with us momentarily. And I'm sure she can make sense out of my babble. So anyway, I was texting back and forth with Tiffany Fitzhenry, and Tiffany has been gracious. And she's got a lot going on today, and family coming, and I get it. And so we probably, well, not probably, we won't see her today, but we're going to do a special report. She's been gracious enough tomorrow to do a follow-up on where we're at, and she's going to tweet out some of the most egregious parts of this report, and I got her a screenshot. So wow, that's so sweet. She says she's excited to circle it with you and so proud you're doing this like a nonviolent protest. And it is for the moment. So we'll be doing a special report. It's just even better, you know. So we get a Tiffany all to ourselves tomorrow, and she's just amazing and doing a lot of great work to expose this. And some of her tweets are just devastating to the other side. So we're gonna march on. This is the 9th hour of the marathon on this Labor Day weekend, and I'm happy to be able to do it. I am wearing a little thin, but the cavalry's on the way. Kelly's here. I see Rosie there. Y'all and all you guys, you've been here the whole time, and I can't thank you enough for that. We had Snake coming in and reading, and Bailey and Badger's here. I gotta figure out how to. He wants to come in and read, and we'll get you in here, Badger. I know you're in there. Just trying to think, and you probably did this already, but the chances of me finding your Gmail are probably slim to none. So if you can email that, and I can check the email, or you know, if you feel comfortable putting your Gmail in the chat room, I can get it that way. Dan, hi Dan, how you doing? So yeah, Badger, you want to come in and read? You're more than welcome. Kelly's on the way, I think. Tiffany will be here tomorrow. We'll just do like a wrap up on this, and we're good. Obviously, I was a bit optimistic to be able to think I could get through all 1,400 pages. So we'll have another one. You know, this report is going to get read aloud one way or another, and what we've done today has really it allows me to go on with the report, because I really couldn't get past, you know, about page 120 or 150 without you know, just getting really, really angry. So I think I can move on, and we'll move on, and we'll just keep covering it. You know, that's what we do, and we're going to get it out. So we're back, and if you obviously you didn't get a chance to, I'm going to back that up because I'm sure I'll be taking another break, but I'll show more of that documentary, Kinsey's Pedophiles. And you know, we were talking about excuse me just for 1 second. No, Rosie, nobody's taken over. I'm at Kelly's coming. She's out. Howie was here for a while. Howie's got to work, but that's okay. And I mean, I've got to run it from here anyway, because we do the channel out of here. So I'll be here till 6, and then I'm going to knock off and catch a nap before my Hurricanes play tonight. And I am going to be watching the Hurricanes game. That's my, you know, for my mental stability. I do love the Hurricanes and still like football. So, but thank you all. You know, Bailey, Rosie, Dan, Yoey is in there. Anna from Sweden has been here the whole time, and thank you so much, Anna. I mean, that's awesome. Badger's in here. Anne, Angela Kaplan. Let's thank all of you guys, because we've had 20 to 30 people in here the whole time, and it makes you know, it makes this a lot less taxing, you know, to know that I'm sharing it with you guys. So awesome. And that's what we want. It's more than we could ever imagine, that this word is getting out, you know, not just here, but in places like Sweden, and it needs to. I mean, this word needs to get out everywhere. So we're working on it, and I'm waiting. Kelly's really not feeling too great today. She's been sick, so I do expect her. She's a trooper. Let me see, Badger, if you're still in there. Thanks, Anna. I need it. I really need it, and I thank you so much. And I can feel it. Yeah, Kelly's sick. Jessica's still with us. You know, she's the best part of doing this has been the people that I've met doing it. You know, and that's all of you in that chat room. It's the survivors, people like Jessica, Becky, Catherine, Missy. Yeah. I got It's a great man. I gotta send Tiffany this other one, because it's like my personal favorite. It's just give me 1 second here. I hope I have it in here. I'll have to copy it. Oh, there it is. That's fine. It's the one with Pope Francis, you know, the playbook. You know, I don't think he likes that very much, but I hope he blocks me. Yeah, Jessica is just, you know, a treasure, and all these any of the survivors that have been on here, I call them angels, because they're just very, very special people. They're all articulate communicators. I mean, incredible people. And, I'm really feel like I'm blessed to know these people. And that includes not just people that have been on here, people like Rosie, who's in there every day retweeting and on Facebook, and Bailey, and I'm sure I'm going to miss a few because I'm running on about 6 cylinders out of my 8 right now. So, but I'll get there. We're over the hump. We're in hour 9, I think, something like that. Yeah, it must be hour 9 or hour. Now you do 8, and then you got to switch over. Regardless, we're moving along. I'm going to hang out for a minute, and you know what? Since you guys are all here now, and I reneged on my ability to start this, I'm going to, not to mention, I probably need to make some coffee. I'm just going to put, while I'm waiting for Kelly, and I've got to make contact with John Paul, because I think John Paul Rice, we might be able to get him on today. Tim, I think, is out of town, or working, I'm sure he would be here. So let me just put this necessary documentary back on. It's horrible, but if it was people like this that have conditioned our society to accept pedophilia, there's no way to sugarcoat it. So yeah, listen to Kinsey's Pedophiles. I'm going to and these creeps believe this shit, that they're not harming kids. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I'm going to put that on. I'm going to make some coffee, try to splash some cold water in my face because I'm getting red. I'm getting pissed. So you guys hang in there. You've been great so far. We're going to make it all the way to 6, and we're going to get through more of this report. And I'll read some of it myself. And Kelly will be here, I think. I'm going to try to make contact with John Paul Rice. So give me about 10, 15 minutes, and I'll see you. I'm glad most of you are over here, and we'll go from there. So see you in a few.
And there was a 5th problem.
For the next 3 years, Kinsey corresponded regularly with Green. In 1948, he would publish large sections of Green's diaries in his first revolutionary book on human sexuality. But rather than presenting them as the claims of a self-confessed child abuser, Kinsey put them forward as the first ever scientific proof that children were sexual beings from birth. When, in 1948, Alfred Kinsey's Sexual Behavior in the Human Male became an instant bestseller, no one seemed to notice the contents of Chapter 5. In it, Kinsey reproduced sections of the pedophile diaries he had received from Mr. Green. First, and with no independent corroboration, he published verbatim Green's detailed descriptions of what the pedophile claimed were orgasms experienced by the hundreds of children he had abused.
Extreme tension with violent convulsion, often involving the sudden heaving and jerking of the whole body, groaning, sobbing, or more violent cries, sometimes with an abundance of tears, especially among younger children.
If you read those words, what he's talking about is kids who are screaming, kids who are protesting in every way they can the fact that their bodies, that their persons are being violated. The individual in question, I think, harmed in serious ways a large number of young people.
Green had also carried out what he claimed were scientific experiments to determine the age at which boys were first capable of orgasms. For the experiment, he masturbated 317 infants and children from 2 months to 15 years old, recording which ones achieved what he interpreted as orgasms. Kinsey reproduced this as Table 31. In Table 32, he laid out the time it had taken Green to bring each of these children to these so-called orgasms. Green also claimed that his experiments proved that, given sufficient adult stimulation, some of the boys were capable of multiple orgasms. Again, with no way of checking the claims, Kinsey simply reproduced them as scientific fact. Finally, in Table 34, Kinsey set out Green's notes on the time it had taken him to masturbate the children to multiple orgasms.
The average interval between the first and second climaxes ranged from less than 10 seconds to 30 minutes or more. Even the youngest males, as young as 5 months in age, are capable of such repeated reactions.
The table suggested that some children, including a 4-year-old boy, had been masturbated over a 24-hour period. In his book, and based primarily on Green's information, Kinsey claimed that children could, with the assistance of an experienced adult, enjoy sexual activity from the moment they were born. It was a revolutionary claim that overturned all previous scientific knowledge about the development of child sexuality. But the claim and the experiments that lay behind it have alarmed Kinsey's critics, particularly those who campaigned for a return to traditional values.
We have a whole chapter here in which children have been tortured for this so-called scientific data. And this is the calculations of those abuse data into tables to promote this as scientific to the world. An assessment of these data suggests that at minimum 317, at maximum 1,200 and some boys were being sexually raped around the clock using stopwatches.
Because of its illegal origins, Green's material was a closely guarded secret. Only a trusted inner circle knew of its existence.
It was illegal, and we knew it was illegal, but it's very important for people to study childhood sexuality. In other cultures, anthropologists can sometimes do this, but in our culture, it is because of our insistence, children are non-sexual. Studying childhood sexuality is essentially impossible, except, for this case like Green. And he contributed a fair amount to our knowledge. And I say our knowledge, I mean, medicine's knowledge of sexuality in children.
But some of Kinsey's team questioned both the morality and the scientific validity of using the material.
Well, when I saw the table on time to orgasm, when infants are stimulated, carried out to the fraction of a second, I thought it was an absurd page in science. But to actually stand there with a stopwatch and have somebody or oneself stimulate the infant and time it to the split second was simply so gross that I didn't feel it had a place in a scientific book.
Well, remember that Noah, who I've never met, was he's a very upstanding kind of man. He was damaged in childhood with all this morality, and then he had this peculiar moralistic wife. I'm understating it. And through all this, it sounded to him like pure sin.
Whether or not I had a moral objection to it, and I did, but that was not the point. this was a scientific book. He was proud of it being scientific. And here was some completely unevaluated, potentially important stuff carried out to absurd numbers, fractions of a second. It was irrelevant. It was unworthy of him as a scientist.
50 years after Kinsey first published Green's pedophile diary as a scientific fact, the Kinsey Institute has been forced to defend his involvement with pedophiles. Director John Bancroft accepts that the scientific reliability of Green's diaries was dubious, but believes Kinsey was justified to make use of them.
Kinsey made it clear in his writings that he saw his task as finding out as much information about sexual behavior as he could. And he sought information from wherever he could find it. He also made it very clear that he did not see it as his role as a scientist to make moral judgment. I think that Alfred Kinsey used this individual's data and shaped a chapter drawing upon it, really disgraced his discussion and elevated to the realm of scientific information, what should have been dismissed as unreliable, self-serving data provided by a predatory pedophile.
How did Alfred Kinsey, a respected scientist and devoted father, become so involved with a man like Green? The answer may lie in a personal war he was fighting, a war against all moral and legal restrictions on sex, a war that had its roots in his own childhood in the slums of Hoboken, New York.
His parents were very poor, and Kinsey's life was dominated to begin with by poverty, very religious, repressive, not just sexy in every way, drink, smoking, Methodist religious background. Family was almost friendless. They were so religious. There are examples of him praying to be allowed to stop mass. He remained religious until into his 20s. He then lost his religion and he turned with fury on religion. He thought it was hypocritical, the repression, frustration, sexual frustration he experienced as a result of his father's strictures. That anger remained with him all his life.
Kinsey's close colleagues believed that this anger fueled his research. To carry out the research, Kinsey believed his key staff needed personal experience of a wide variety of sexual behavior. To ensure this, he encouraged them to have sex with each other.
One night, Kinsey said, "Why don't you come down to my room?" So I went down and I immediately felt some tension in the air, which was quite different from anything I had experienced with him before. And it suddenly occurred to me that Kinsey was preparing to offer me the opportunity to have some homosexual experience. And I said, "I don't think I want to participate in this, and please excuse me," and I walked out the door.
But Kinsey's interest was not solely scientific. He had discovered that he was increasingly sexually attracted to men and had begun to live a double life. In public, he appeared to be a happily married, respectable academic. In private, he sought out homosexual encounters. But these were illegal, and he was forced to keep them secret.
On the one hand, he had a wife, he had children, he had a career as a respected college professor. On the other hand, he had sexual needs and desires that could not be met within the confines of middle-class morality. That made him, of necessity, cultivate two kind of parallel existences. The one the world saw, the one that was private, sovereign, and known only to himself. So when he builds a staff in which there is some wife swapping, when he builds a staff in which there are some gay contacts, he's doing it, I think, out of needs that are both professional and private.
To satisfy these twin motives.
Well, that's his story, and he's sticking to it. God. It's revolting to have to watch, but what you need, and we're back. Hi. What you need to see is, and why we show this and why it's important is men like this, and you know, we go to church and we know what happens, and you go to school and this is what happens, and right now as we speak, this institute is up and operating at Indiana University. And do yourself a favor and watch the rest of this documentary and listen to one of his victims at the end, who's 76 years old and trying to get the records of her rape from these scumbags that are posing as educators. And if that doesn't enrage you, you know, I really don't know what will. And what's important is we need to realize how our society has been socially engineered by monsters to be where we're at right now. And you need to know your enemy. Know your enemy. That's true in war. That's true in firefighting. So that's why we present this information. You need to know what you're up against and who you're dealing with. So that's why we're here doing what we're doing today. And here's I'll just tell you a program note right now. Yeah, normalization. Yeah, absolutely, Badger. You know. Yep. And you know, we absolutely, Alistair fucking Crowley, no doubt. Yeah. And you guys know you're in the minority, and it's our job, and you can't lay this on people, you know, just boom, you know. And sometimes you have to just introduce them, you know, piece by piece to this information, because a lot of people just cannot handle it at all. But we're getting there. That's what broadcasts like this does. People like Tiffany Fitzhenry, you know, is doing that. John Paul Rice is doing that. The guys that are in Open Secret have done that. You know, so we're making progress. You know, of course it's not fast enough, but that's, you know, that's changing, and it is accelerating. So we've got there's a couple of John also. He's not feeling too well today. So what we're going to do, Tiffany and John Paul Rice, we're going to do a follow up to this tomorrow, whenever that's convenient. And you know, hopefully you'll be there live. But if you're not, it'll, you know, you can watch it, and they're gonna. They already have been a great help in getting this report out there and getting it read and noticed. And so we're just going to do a recap with them tomorrow. I'm expecting Kelly. I'm expecting Kelly with a Y, my wife too. she's bringing me a cheeseburger. So hopefully Kelly with an I will be here, because she's just another one of these people that I'm just privileged to know. You know, her research ability is just unbelievable. And I want to thank Jason Goodman also to he's always been available to help us with what we're doing, and he himself does a lot of good work. And so yeah, I'm grateful, and to everybody that's hung with us, you know, all the way from Sweden. Scotland was in here, and from Scotland, you know, my mom, who's responsible for whatever I turned out to be, my little Scottish mother, and she's here in spirit. I know that. And she probably could have ended this all by herself with a few good men to help her out and carry the swords. But so at any rate, we're going in the right direction. I'm going to continue reading, and we're going to get to 6 o'clock, and we'll get through as much of this as we can. And thank you to everybody, to Snake and Trish Negron and Jessica. You know, if I miss anybody, don't don't be upset, because I'm kind of running on fumes. But there is a cheeseburger. Yeah. F grade in Psych 101. Awesome. Yeah, that's a badge of honor, V. Peters. Yeah. So, well, there we go. That's my cheeseburger notifications. That's on the way, and I'm probably gonna. Well, I won't eat in front of you, because I'll have the. I'll try to not have my mouth full while I'm talking. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Maybe Kelly will be here and she can read a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. B. It's putrid, you know, and they'll defend anything. Their whole system is based on corruption. You know, that's how they get their money. These universities, you know, it's and think about it. You know, we send our kids to church, you know, to you know, hopefully be a good thing, and we're seeing what they're exposed to there, and then we send them to school and university, and this is what they're exposed to. But it's a plan. It's not by accident, and you know, we're figuring out what we've been up against for a lot of years, and we're flipping the script on these animals. So let's read some more, and I might be taking a break when that cheeseburger gets here. Gotta tell you. Let me see. I'm gonna get. There's. All right, and we move on to the disgusting case of Father Thomas Smith, and I'm sure you guys know, but just remember that these, and it says it in the report, these examples, and when I've read the whole thing, you know, they just weren't able to do these case studies on 300 priests and still have a report that would get read. But they say it, you know, right in the report that these are just examples of you know, it's a cross section of you know, monsters. So, you know, it's not to say that these are any worse than any other priests on the list, you know. So anyway, let's move on. Father Thomas Smith started at Our Lady of Peace in Erie, June of '67. In September, moves to the Sacred Heart. In 1970, he moves to St. Patrick in Franklin, Pennsylvania. Notre Dame in '71. John the Baptist in Erie, sure getting around, this guy. Then St. Cosmos and St. Damien, Puxatawney. Pete should have bit him. 81, St. Mary of the Assumption, Frenchville. Okay, there it is, 84. He's been abusing probably since '67, but they finally get enough flack where they put him on health leave, and we know what what that means. That means he's been caught. So then he goes to a council. You know, they get him out of, you know, being direct contact for a little while, but boom, 84, he's back. St. Joseph's in Du Bois. Excuse me. St. Hippolyte, Guy Mills, St. Joseph, Mount Jewett, St. Teresa, Union City, 85, 86. Oh, more health leave, 2 health leaves. So apparently he's continuing to offend. That's what pedophiles do. And they knew that. And you've seen, we've read it. They had psychological profiles on these monsters. They knew they were going to reoffend. So yeah, he gets almost 2 years of health leave. So they're keeping him hiding under wraps, you know, paying off the victims, you know, shutting everybody up. And then there he is back, St. Joseph's, 1987, in December. Holy Rosary in Erie, 1994. Pleasant Ridge Manor, Sisters of Mercy Mother House. You know, those sound like group homes, you know. St. Patrick's Erie. Okay, so he continues, and it doesn't say here. He may be still at St. Patrick's. And so we'll find out as we read. So Father Thomas Smith ordained in 1967. In 81, he was assigned to St. Mary of the Assumption. Bishop Michael Murphy was first told of child sexual abuse perpetrated by Smith against a 17-year-old boy in January 84 while at St. Mary's. Smith resigned. Okay. Yeah, but where did he go? February 19, he resigned from that position. From February 84 to October, he's on health leave. In reality, he was in residential psychological therapy. In October, Smith was released and reassigned by Murphy to St. Joseph's in Du Bois. I'm sure they didn't know what his problem was, so he's reassigned. There, go ahead, reoffend. Pennsylvania until February 85. In February, Smith was transferred to St. Hippolyte in Guy's Mills. Okay, I think. All right. So yeah, John's gonna get well. He's not feeling. He's under the weather. John Paul Rice. Okay, so they're moving him around. He continues to offend. Sent to Smith to residential psychological therapy once again, twice. And to go there twice with the Catholics, you really got to be messed up. Official diocesan records obtained by the grand jury showed this was designated as a leave of absence upon his paid leave of absence. Upon his release, Smith was sent to St. Joseph's in Mount Jewett. About a month at St. Joseph's, he was transferred to St. Teresa in Union City, Pennsylvania. He remained for approximately 10 months. In spite of Smith's history of child abuse and his need for continued treatment, Murphy continued to permit Smith's contact with children. While at St. Teresa's, Smith sent a letter to Murphy describing his gifts and accomplishments and working with young people. Oh, my God. In December 86, Smith was placed on leave of absence again. 3 times. Leave of absence continued for almost a year while Smith was returned to residential psychological therapy. In 87, records indicate that the treatment facility informed Murphy that Smith suffered from driven, compulsive, and long-standing obsession with sexually assaulting children. Let me read that again. Okay, so in 1987, this bishop is informed by their psychiatrist, that this guy suffers from a driven, compulsive, and long-standing obsession with sexually assaulting children. Wow. The facility warned that since his first treatment in 84, Smith had not stopped sexually assaulting children and that interdiction was needed. And this is their facility telling them that. Their own paid doctors. Bailey, see the hammer. Hammer's back. Reoffender. Yeah, sick man. And who's sicker, him or the scumbags that they're allowing him to continue to do this? And I believe they're offenders too, at some point, or were. And this is a crime allowing him to continue to do this. Secret records, again, obtained by the grand jury pursuant to a subpoena, showed that while in treatment, Smith admitted to sexually molesting at least 15 children. So here we go with the numbers again, okay? So when guys like Bill Neely and the Today Show talk about 1,000+ children, it's more like 10,000, okay? So we've got 300 and some odd priests in this report. One guy had 41 victims. This guy has 15. And this is what he's admitting to. Smith stated that all of his victims were boys, some as young as 7. 7. That's a life sentence in Florida. Okay? Smith had raped them anally and orally. This information was provided to Murphy November 1987. The same month, Smith was discharged from the facility. In spite of Smith's confession to sexually violating at least 15 prepubescent boys, Murphy assigned Smith to the parish at St. Joseph's in Warren on December 7th, 1987. Approximately 3 months later, March 88, Father Glenn Whitman wrote a letter to Smith and advised him of recent conduct that placed him in violation of his aftercare agreement with St. Luke's Institute. Regardless, Smith continued in ministry at St. Joseph's with the approval of Murphy, and beginning in 1990, Troutman. On July 25th, 1990, Whitman wrote a memo to Troutman and noted 2 known parishes affected by Smith's abuse. He also wrote that the number of victims is not clearly known, so maybe 100. The same day, Troutman wrote his own memo regarding Smith. In this document, Troutman wrote that he had met with Smith about his problems, that Smith was a person of candor and sincerity. Yet, he's a predator. Troutman noted that after another year and a half, he would consider, so let's give it a year and a half. I'll consider a new assignment for Smith, because he wanted Smith to complete his aftercare and was fearful of future litigation. By who? Smith? Oh, God damn. And there's your documentation. This is evidence in a criminal conspiracy case. It's all there. Letters from the bishop, secret files. Okay. Smith was so relieved to find a refuge in Troutman that he wrote to him on July 17th with respect to the aforementioned meeting. He thanked Troutman for truly caring about him in reference to his desire to stay in active ministry. Smith wrote, "And so why did I worry?" Serial sexual predator. Yeah, just stay in ministry, no problem. But you don't have any worries. July 1992, Smith was transferred to the Holy Rosary Parish in Erie by Troutman. Smith was very active in the Isaiah 43 ministry program, a program for Catholic children. Oh my God. So there's his letter. All the progress he's making while he continues to rape children. A little over a year after Smith was transferred to Holy Rosary, Troutman received a letter September 20th, 1993. The letter was from the parents of one of Smith's victims. They described the abuse suffered by their son when he was only 9 years old. Troutman wrote to St. Luke's Institute, one of Smith's treatment providers, and requested information as to the future ministry of Smith. They've already told this asshole he's a serial pedophile. But he's writing a letter. I want to confirm that. Among other things, Troutman noted that he was worried about appearances. That says it all right there. You could give a shit about the children getting raped. And that Father Smith does participate in the Isaiah 43 program, which takes him outside of the diocese so he can rape kids outside of the diocese. I have no supervision of his activity away from the diocese. It is an act of trust in him. I get, you know. Troutman explained this Troutman guy needs to be arrested and spend, if he's still alive, the rest of his life. Let's see. Can I see? Check today. Okay, I'm just got a text. Stand by. Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right, so on we go with this horror show. St. Luke's Institute responded on December 28, 1993. Troutman was informed that Smith had failed to report his involvement with the Isaiah 43 program as part of his continued aftercare. Troutman sent a letter to Smith and informed him that his duties at Holy Rosary would be altered. However, Troutman permitted Smith to remain in the Isaiah 43 program until he completed his duties there in March 1994. The church bulletin for Holy Rosary Parish, January 1994, announced the assignment of Father Thomas Smith, parochial vicar, to several chaplaincy positions in the Erie area beginning at the end of March 94, and noted that Smith would remain in residence at Holy Rosary with the title of resident and weekend assistant. Unsupervised. This assignment permitted Smith to roam freely about the diocese. You're going to hear dogs barking. Serving as a chaplain with all the authority and power of the priesthood. Moreover, he continued to be a friendly face in residence at the parish and weekend assistant. Nowhere in the bulletin was it indicated that Troutman notified the parishioners that Smith had been in treatment since 1984 due to sexually raping children, or was it noted that Smith admitted to such conduct with as many as 15 boys in 1987. Nowhere did it warn that the diocese was aware that he had reoffended and that the offenses included anal and oral sex with prepubescent boys. These warnings were conspicuously absent, because it's a criminal conspiracy, because Troutman failed to warn his own parishioners of the danger Smith posed to their children. So there's another one. There's the bulletin. Holy Rosary Church. If you're getting a new guy, big announcement. This is just beyond belief. And it's criminal. It's evidence of criminal conspiracy, and these assholes need to be jailed. The same month, all Pennsylvania bishops received a confidential letter from the Most Reverend Joseph Adamak, Bishop of the Diocese of Altoona. Adamak and the Diocese of Altoona, Johnstone, were involved in a high-profile litigation of child sexual abuse offenses perpetrated by Father Francis Luddy, as discovered by the 37th statewide investigating grand jury in their investigation of the Diocese of Altoona, Johnson. Adamak and the diocese were aware of sexual offenses committed by Luddy. Documentation within their secret archives. Hi.
Flying food.
I'm going to come out.
Okay.
I'm not going to put people through me eating that.
How long?
A couple of minutes. Documentation within their secret archives contained incriminating information regarding numerous priests who had molested children. In Adamak's letter to the other bishops, he explained the steps he had taken to protect the secret archives. Protect the archives at all costs from litigation. Notations on the document appear to indicate Troutman took note of the diocesan records, which Adamak was forced to disclose, and that the diocese motions in the case, such as seeking bifurcation, jury sequestration, and to dismiss based on a time bar, were being denied. Wow. And there it is. There it is. So they're obstructing justice in a legal case. That's what they're doing. But that's what criminals do. Confidential. Yeah, I might want to read that one. This is evidence of a criminal conspiracy right there, black and white. Meanwhile, Smith was unhappy with his new assignment and sought a reprieve from Murphy, his first enabler. Murphy, now retired, reached out to Troutman on behalf of Smith and another priest seeking greater leniency. Troutman responded by letter in 1994. Troutman explained that he had not been overly restricted, but the diocese could not adopt a posture less than what Pittsburgh had done. The grand jury noted that Troutman did not cite to the evils of child sexual abuse as the external pressure which warranted the restriction of offending priests. Rather, Troutman provided Murphy a copy of an article from Time magazine on this problem and stated that the article is vicious and demonstrates once again the need for vigilance on the part of the church. Well, the church is vicious. So there it is. They're whining about being taken to task for raping children. This is the caliber of these bishops and these priests. It doesn't get any worse. It really doesn't. All right. All right. This one is just so bad. I'm really gonna have to take another break, and I need to eat. You guys hang in there. We'll put Kinsey back on so you can get even madder. And we're going to finish this guy out when I get back. Guess where he goes? The YMCA. Yep. So, all right, let me get some fuel down, and we'll continue on with this other nightmare and criminal, Kinsey. And I'll see you back here in about 10 minutes. So hang in there with us, guys. We're getting through this.
Involving his staff and outside volunteers. Clarence Tripp was his first photographer and became one of his closest confidants.
I was a photographer from 20th Century Fox, and he said, oh, among other things, do make me some movies. I need 2,000 orgasms. Of course, we never got to 2,000, but we got to hundreds.
The types of behavior filmed kind of run the gamut. There was a lot of just heterosexual copulation. There was masturbation. There was also more than a little masochism filmed at the Institute. Kinsey, I think, wanted to use these films to to study and to learn and to observe. That motivation was certainly there. I think also Kinsey has a personal interest in seeing the filming take place. For him, it's both satisfying emotionally, and it's also important scientifically that the filming take place.
But Kinsey had begun to realize this type of sex research would take a heavy toll on both him and his staff.
When Kinsey first hired me to do pictures, he said, I want to warn you of something. As soon as we get you to photographing sex every day and paying attention to sex, right, left, and center, pretty soon nothing will turn you on. Nothing in the area, nothing visual will turn you on. Because you'll lose all those sensitivities.
As he immersed himself ever deeper in human sexuality, the effects on Kinsey were becoming difficult to hide. Torn between the demands of his public image and his private sexual needs, his behavior became increasingly self-destructive.
A strong association developed in him that in order to have sexual pleasure, he also had to pay for it. Pain. Kinsey, on one occasion, circumcised himself with a pocket knife without anesthesia or anything else. That to me is an act of a desperate man. It's an act of a person whose private boundaries are starting to erode.
Yeah.
In 1947, Kinsey sent the final proofs of his chapter on child sexuality for approval by the pedophile he codenamed Mr. Green. Much of it came from Green's child abuse diaries, which has called into question its value.
The fact that it's only one person in itself weakens its scientific value, but doesn't remove it. We've known of a few people of this kind who have kept detailed recordings of their sexual exploits over a long period of time. To some extent, they may feel that they're justifying their sexual behavior in the process of documenting it. And I think one has to be rather cautious about accepting their information just at face value.
Kinsey's critics say that whether or not the material was scientific, he should have reported Green to the police. But the Kinsey Institute rejects this.
It's inconceivable that one could do research in that way, give people guarantees of confidentiality, and then when they've given you the information, say, well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to report you to the police. That would be immorality in my book of the highest order.
Some of Kinsey's other defenders claim that Green had long ceased to be an active child abuser by the time he met Kinsey, and so there was no need to report him to the police. But the Kinsey Institute refuses to release Green's diaries, which could corroborate this. Only trusted Kinsey supporters are allowed access to them.
By convincing them that I was not against Kinsey, but concerned to find out what he was really like. And as they got used to me and realized that I was honest and sincere, I did finally get into, I think, everything I could reasonably have expected.
But Jonathan Gaythorne Hardy's notes, taken during his access to Green's diaries, suggest that the paedophile was sexually active until 1954, more than 10 years after he first met Kinsey.
What does the highlighted piece mean?
Yes. Well, you see, he may have done it. The thing is, Kinsey didn't use that information. It's quite possible that Green went on, in fact, I'm sure he did, went on having sex with everybody until then. But that was long after Kinsey had got the journals.
Kinsey's critics believe his involvement with Green was morally indefensible, especially because the paedophile was probably still sexually abusing children.
The only justification for defending Kinsey was that all this happened before. If Green was sexually abusing children to 1954, Kinsey's last book came out in 1953. That certainly would mean that all of that violence and all of that abuse was going on throughout the entire time Kinsey was collecting these data. Wouldn't it?
Green was not the only paedophile providing information to Kinsey.
We got in prisons, a lot of them, because we had the prison records of these people. So we'd say, give us a list of everybody in San Quentin who's set up on pedophilia charge, and we'd go after them. So we got a lot that way. Then there was also a pedophile organization in this country. They cooperated with us. And some of them who were not, of course, not incarcerated, they came and gave us information.
Not all of the pedophile information arriving at the Kinsey Institute in Indiana came from within America.
There was a man in Germany who was a pedophile, and he wrote Kinsey. And he was interested in information about pedophilia, and he offered his own case history. Of course, Kinsey couldn't go to Germany to get it, but he wrote him questions in a letter, and they carried on quite a correspondence. And we were learning some interesting things about pedophilia in Germany.
The pedophile was Dr. Fritz von Baljusek, a former senior Nazi Party official. Before the war, he had been a stormtrooper. During the war, he had commanded a ghetto in an occupied Polish town. During all this time, and in the years that followed, he sexually abused hundreds of pre-adolescent girls and boys. He recorded the details in pseudo-scientific diaries in which he claimed to have masturbated and penetrated the children to assist their sexual development. At Kinsey's request, von Baljusek sent his diaries to Indiana. But then one of his victims was murdered.
So the police were looking for pedophiles, and they ran across him and decided he was probably the murderer. And so as they went through his possessions, they found his correspondence with Kinsey. So they said, aha, Kinsey must know all about this man. We've got to have Kinsey's testimony and whatever records this man sent to Kinsey. So they got Interpol, International Police on the thing. And they even involved the FBI and some other, and they put an enormous amount of pressure on Kinsey to reveal this guy's, this stuff he sent. And he was also keeping a sexual diary, and they wanted his diary badly. Kinsey said, absolutely not. This is completely confidential, and you're not going to get it. We'll destroy it before we let you have it.
Von Baljusek was never charged with murder, but he pleaded guilty to sexually abusing more than 30 children. At his trial, the judge criticized Kinsey for failing to report such an active pedophile to the police. It is a criticism the Kinsey Institute rejects.
I think people have got to ask themselves the question, do they believe that research into sexuality should be done or should not be done? Particularly research into sexuality, which might be, in some sense, illegal.
But if the cost potentially is more children at risk of abuse, can that cost be justified?
Consider the cost of remaining in ignorance. Unless we know about these behaviours, we'll be in a much worse position than if we have more information about them. That was Kinsey's view.
John Bancroft is adamant that Kinsey never did more than accept reports from paedophiles on their sexual activity.
Kinsey didn't ask anybody to carry out any particular form of sexual behaviour. He simply asked them to let him know of their experiences they'd had.
But at von Balyasek's trial, an exchange between the judge and the paedophile seemed to suggest otherwise. The judge said,
I had the impression that you got to the children in order to impress Kinsey and to deliver him material.
And von Balyasek replied,
Kinsey himself asked me for that.
If the judge's impression was correct, and if von Balyasek was telling the truth, it would be evidence of Kinsey's involvement in ongoing child sexual abuse.
It tells me that von Balyasek, who was not a sex researcher, got his directions as to how to do the, quote, scientific part of the research from Dr. Kinsey, that he was directed.
Over the years, people have used their contacts with Kinsey in a variety of ways. And it's not surprising that if someone's being charged with an offence, if they can bring Kinsey's name in, they will do, in the hope that it might mitigate their case. But Kinsey was not responsible for what that man was doing, nor did he encourage it.
The key to resolving Kinsey's involvement with child sexual abuse is in von Balyasek's diaries, but the Kinsey Institute refuses to release them. However, for more than 15 years, Kinsey appealed to people of all sexual orientations to send him information. In at least some of these appeals, he seemed prepared to give instructions on how to record their sexual activity.
Persons who have kept calendars or who are willing to begin keeping day-by-day calendars showing the source and frequency of their sexual outlet are urged to write to us for instructions.
So many people responded that the Kinsey Institute has never been able to catalogue their material, and today has no idea who sent in which diaries. But the Institute says it has long been expecting to hear from someone claiming to be a victim of Kinsey's paedophile correspondence. Esther White is the first person publicly to make this claim. Esther's family had a long-standing connection with Kinsey. Her grandfather attended Indiana University with him. But Esther came from an incestuous family. She claims she was abused first by her grandfather and later by her father.
The abuse started with my father, I think, as a very young child, probably about age 7. My father started a loving, concerned, petting kind of an affection. And when the opportunity came along, he took the opportunity to turn that from affection into what he called affection and love, into a sexual relationship, intercourse, oral copulation, ugly things that I don't like to talk about.
Based on what her father told her, Esther believes he was one of the pedophiles who provided information to Kinsey.
My father actually did mail in some questionnaires I believe, to the Kinsey Institute about the sexual abuse that he was doing on me. At the very peak of when all the abuse was going on, there was a paper in a brown envelope, and it was kind of halfway out of the envelope. It was a summer afternoon, and I don't know why I remember there was a warm breeze blowing through the bedroom window. The envelope had blown a little bit, and I went to put it back on the dresser, and I saw that there were questions there. There was a whole series of questions with little boxes in front of them. And I read one of the sentences, and I didn't know one of the words. And so I asked my father, what is O-R-G-A-U? Oh, he said, that's orgasm. And he continued to explain to me what an orgasm was. And then I realized why he was looking at his watch. Because he was telling me to let him know when I felt an orgasm. And when he saw that I had seen this paper, he immediately said he had a deadline to meet and he had to send it away. So he put it in this envelope.
I know nothing about this woman or her father or grandfather. I have no idea whether there's any basis of fact in what she's saying at all.
Would it be possible for the Institute to examine its files and determine whether her father did send information to Kinsey?
At this point, I can't say. We have a huge amount of information that people have sent to the Institute about their sexual experiences. Somewhere amongst that, there may be something relevant to this woman. But that material is uncatalogued, unordered, and I really have no idea how difficult it will be to check that out.
Can
you? Wow. Well, here we are. I'm making sure there's no hamburgers in my mustache. So thanks for staying with us. I'm gonna keep reading for a while. I'm not sure if we're gonna go till 6 o'clock due to circumstances beyond our control. Kelly won't be able to be with us today, and or Tiffany or John. So we'll and we are doing a follow-up tomorrow. So I'll get that posted as soon as I can. I imagine it will be sometime around midday or after 12 Eastern. So we're going to get through a little bit more of this report. And this is thank you all for the support you've given us and hanging in there. We're coming up on, let's see, 6, 2. So this is hour 9, now 9.5 that we've been here. So I've truly had about enough of this report for today, and we're the solution is we'll just have more people come on and help us read it, and we'll do maybe shorter shows. So I'm going to continue here. I think we'll probably go till 4 o'clock because I was kind of extending it so we could have some more guests with us, but that's probably not going to happen today. So I'm sure you guys are worn out. Bailey, I can't believe you're in Twitter jail. Bastards. Yeah, Jess, it is. It's a little stressful. Yeah. So we'll finish up with this section, and we'll just go ahead and end the broadcast, and I'll have, some sort of information, or just, hang out. If you're hanging out tomorrow, they'll, at some point, and I'm thinking it's after midday, will be Tiffany Fitzhenry will be here, and John Paul Rice, and hopefully Kelly also, and maybe even Howie. I'm not sure if he's working or not tomorrow. So we will do a follow-up. We'll get through more of this, and we're not letting this go by any means. We're going to keep reading this and get through the whole thing, and just keep circulating it and making sure it gets as far and wide out as we can possibly manage, which so far has been pretty far. So let me get my file here. Okay, yeah, and this, boy, I needed a break, and I'll probably and this is a good one to end on, because it's just so egregious, and after everything that we've already read about this guy, how this ends up. So let's continue. This is the case, the disgusting criminal case of Father Smith, and what a Thomas Smith is just one of the worst. So after all the boys and the reassignment and the reoffense, we see that all they're concerned about is the appearance, their liability, and the appearances. So after all this, it's egregious, and you have all these letters, confidential, and a civil case is underway on this guy. I mean, forgive me for 1 second. Sorry about that, folks. I got a smart cat. He rings the bell to get out. I just had to make sure that was him. So, the kitty is outside. So yeah, and they're worried about the Time Magazine article. It's vicious. It's vicious that Time Magazine is exposing these child rapists, and it's all there in black and white. And they can't appear to do less than Pittsburgh did. And this is just unbelievable. So after all this, I mean, an egregious serial sex offender. This is what happens. Okay, ultimately, Smith served as chaplain, as described in the Holy Rosary Church Bulletin, until his retirement in 2002. In 96, Smith wrote to Troutman and asked to be appointed to the board of the local YMCA, as well as to be returned to the Isaiah 43 program. Yeah, he wants to get at those kids. Troutman was aware that Smith continued to seek contact with children and elected not to warn anyone. And where he is, he can offend there. He wants to get next to more kids. And here we go. Then and thank God for that Spotlight article, because then they actually started to change some of the stuff they were doing. Not that they cared, or not that they were trying to help these children in any way, but after the Spotlight article, they knew they were on borrowed time, so to speak. But and it is almost 2 decades later. So, due to the national coverage following the article about the Archdiocese of Boston, Troutman was forced to field letters from concerned parishioners and answer inquiries from the local press. On January 31st, 02, Troutman wrote to the parents of one of Smith's victims and stated, "I believe appropriate action has been taken in the fact that there is no parish assignment and there is definite curtailing of his ministry." Not elimination, but it's been curtailed. March 15th, 02, Troutman gave an interview to a news reporter and said, "We have no priest or deacon or layperson that I know of that has in any way a pedophile background." Lie. Smith retired that same month and was still a Roman Catholic priest. By April 02, some victims had begun litigation in connection with their past abuse. In a letter dated April 24th, 02, from counsel for the diocese to the attorney for one of Smith's victims, the following statement was made. "It must be understood that we cannot simply write checks because an event occurred 20, 30, or 40 years ago. But we must limit our assistance to rehabilitation and encourage people such as your client to attempt to put the past behind them and move on with their lives." Wow. By February 03, it appeared Smith had moved on with his own life. A February 26, 2003 memo by Troutman documented that Smith had obtained employment as a counselor at Turning Point and that Troutman had relied on Smith's word that he disclosed his past abuses to them. So he's counseling kids he's still a priest, and these pieces of shit are perfectly okay with it. Then there's a memo, July 03, documenting that Turning Point had made a complaint. Smith had never disclosed his history of child sexual abuse offenses to them. Troutman documented that, "I felt he had made a complete recovery from alcoholism and sexual abuse." And they keep trying to tie those two together, and they got nothing to do with each other. "He had been faithful to his treatment program and gives every indication of taking full responsibility for his actions." Horse shit. Under public pressure, Troutman needs to go to jail if he's still alive, submitted a formal request to the Vatican on November 10th, 2004 to have him defrocked. So now that he has no choice, now that he's busted beyond belief, now they're going to petition the Vatican. Now that Troutman needed a basis to remove Smith from the priesthood, he acted with candor. Contrary to nearly every one of Troutman's previous statements regarding Smith, because he's dealing with the real bosses, the Vatican now, so he's got to come up with some evidence. It's not like he's dealing with the public or the law. Troutman now disclosed his knowledge to the Vatican in a confidential letter. Troutman admitted that the Diocese of Erie had been aware of Smith's abuses since at least 1987. Troutman disclosed that Smith abused boys between 7 and 12 years of age. He described Smith's acts as chilling and noted that Smith used physical force to bring about the offenses and threats to secure the secrecy of his crimes. Violent rapist, sex offender. Troutman wrote that Smith invoked the name of God to justify his actions. They all do. Probably Troutman's justifying that to keep him practicing as a priest. Use the name of God to justify his actions against the victims. Well, yeah, don't use the name of God in vain, while you're raping kids. This is just... While using their faith in the priesthood to manipulate them and secure their silence, Troutman noted that even after Smith was told to avoid any and all occasions that would place him in the company of minors, he continued to do so in a public manner. For example, he was photographed assisting high school students in the collection of food for the poor, and the photograph was published in a local newspaper. Troutman summarized Smith's worldview and stated that he saw victims as objects rather than people. Yeah, most serial rapists and serial killers do. They're not people, they're objects. So that's what these guys have in common with serial killers, and there's really very little difference. The Vatican finally acted in 2006 and removed Smith from the priesthood. Smith's former flock was never told the reason for his removal. On August 3rd, 2006, Troutman directed the pastor at St. Hippolyte to make the following notation in the record of the parish with respect to Smith. Dismissed from the clerical state on June 10th, 06 by Pope Benedict. Boy, that's a joke. The Nazi, Pope Benedict. Nothing else need be noted. And that's it. Those are the case histories just from Erie. We got through 2, I think. Today we got to page 113, so we covered some ground, and we're going to continue to cover this ground, and probably tomorrow we'll read some more of it with Tiffany and John Paul Rice, and hopefully Kelly will be able to join us, and we're going to keep getting this information out there, and I just want to thank you guys. I'm totally whipped, and I might have sometimes my brain writes a check that my butt can't cash, and that may be the case today. So we made it for 9 hours, 10 hours. So, and I'm happy that we got the information out that we did. You guys have done a great job tweeting, and just being here and sharing this broadcast. Anna, I'm telling you, you're something else, and I sure appreciate it. Yvonne, Rosie, Anole, Badger, Bailey, the Hammer. And that's, I can't take my time with it. I get this, got to do it today, all 1,400 pages while I keel over in the process. So you guys are awesome. And literally we could not do this, without you. I mean, Howie said that, Kelly said that, Catherine said that when she was with us, and even Al. So, you guys keep doing what you do, and we're just going to keep doing what we do together. And we are a force to be reckoned with. And you want to, there's some force will be, absolutely. Thank you, Anna. Awesome. And you're going to see some force tomorrow, because Tiffany is just like Kelly and others. She's a force of nature, and so is John Paul. I spent 2 hours on the phone with John Paul Rice like it was nothing. I mean, and this guy is just amazing, and he's gonna and is doing great work, and together we're gonna put an end to this one way or another. So my thanks, and I think I'm headed for nap time. I got some nap fuel that my wife Kelly, that's another Kelly with a Y, brought me a great cheeseburger. So I've got some fuel to take that nap on. So thank you all. I love each and every one of you, and I'm eternally grateful for your support and your courage to face this stuff. Jessica, everybody, to face this head on, and that's what's going to bring this to an end. So I love you guys. I'll say good night. It's almost nighttime, and we'll see you tomorrow. I'm assuming around noon, maybe afternoon. So more to come. More will be revealed, as they say. So bye for now. Thanks, everybody. Good night.